Still is 43 points behind, and Richard Leamington still holds his third on 91, but then a whole pile of guys. Richard Moore has moved up several places. He's on 88. Fomrico Partouche has moved up to fifth on 85, and Darren Hall back on 80 points.
A smaller group of riders in this one, Will, but I'm sure it'll be no less entertaining. Enormous wheel stand then for the 7 bike of Richard Moore. Really got the front wheel up in the air on that R1 as they snake through this left and right hand combination. It often brings people undone, and it has done right there.
Well, Rico Partouche is on the smallest engine bike in the field, number 18. It's a 600, basically super sport. 77 there is the Aprilia Tuono of James Van Rooyen from South Australia.
It's a great looking bikes as a feature of this category. They always have the good looking gear. Good little swap mix up going up here now between Richard Leamington on the Ducati Adelaide 99S and the 77 of Van Rooyen.
Talk about low budgets, and then you see a 99S Ducati. Nothing low budget about that. James Van Rooyen, those leading him at the moment on 77.
Somebody ran very wide just then. It was Moore. Richard Moore's been on the gas since this one absolutely started. He is flying, not necessarily in the right direction, but he's certainly spectacular aboard that number 7. Here he comes again under brakes. Oh, man, that's close.
And going a bit wide there's Darren Hall, another South Australian on 55. He's on a GSXR 1000 Suzuki. 7 in behind him is Richard Moore.
Flexi Rider Insurance bringing us the Extreme C&D Future Champions Cup here from Malalla Raceway Park in South Australia. And these bikes, very much an expensive proposition, certainly if you throw them down the road. Look at Moore, another wheel stand again for that number 7 bike.
Yeah, well, the Ducati's probably about 40 grand, and the Honda that's leading at the CBR 600 is probably about 14. So there's a fair deal of difference, and Rico Partouche doing a very good job with it.
Beautifully turned out number 3 of Leamington right there. That's the man we spoke of earlier. Now you see a good little battle between the 77 of Van Rooyen, the Spire Thunder Racing entry, and there's a close-up look at 40 grand.
But Partouche, there on 18, goes out of sight on the CBR 600 at Honda. The 27-year-old Israeli rider settled now in Victoria after marrying an Australian gal, coming out here and getting on with motorcycle racing and getting on with it very well.
Steve Manning, disappointing result for him at the moment. There he is, the jungleboyracing.com, number 34. Remember, Manning was very powerful and had a good win at Barbagallo Raceway. Doesn't seem to be so well suited at the moment to the Malalla circuit.
In the middle of 2 three-way dices, here's the second of them. And there's some very good racing going on. This one being headed by Moore on 7.
Darren Hall there as well at number 55, closing in. Look at this little battle here, Will. They're going at it.
They sure are, and sandwiched between them, having a hard time on number 3 is Leamington.
Oh, the 55 of Hall very nearly got into some places he didn't want to be. Had to get on the anchors hard. Look at this battle now. Moore and Jungle Boy going at it.
So good battle going on, bringing up the tail end of the bunch at the moment is Hall on 55.
Manning should make the pass stick and does.
34, Manning doing a good job.
Whoops.
He's on an R1 Yamaha, which is a pretty good piece of machinery, light but with a lot of power.
The 55 of Hall starting to show his presence in this one as well. Third in the shot now, squirming under brakes. He got by more on the outside. Oh, something's come off the bike. Has he dropped the chain or something? There is definitely a problem for the 7 bike. It's slow dramatically. I think it was the chain. So drama then. Very lucky for one of the riders behind, in fact, Hall, not to run over the chain. Well, Will, let's have a look at the Flexi Rider replay. The chain just drops out there. Just misses Hall. Look at that. Whoa, that could have been dangerous.
Looks like a snake, doesn't it?
Like an errant rattlesnake.
But as you say, it's gone, and bad luck for Richard Moore, who's going very well, the Victorian. He's travelled a fair old way to have that happen to him. And he's R1 Yamaha, a bit unusual for a chain to break, because they're usually non-lubricated in the sense that they're fully packed and serviced for life. And they do go on for a fair while, albeit in Grand Prix racing, a new one on for every race.
Yeah, never would expect to see it happen at domestic level, that's for sure. So this guy here, starting to make his way forward a bit. Hall is starting to close in now on Manning, on Jungle Boy. He likes popping wheelies out of that corner right there. But so far, this Flexi Rider Insurance Formula C and D grade Future Champions Cup getting towards its conclusion, and Partouche doing an excellent job in front.
but being chased by James Van Rooyen, he's doing a good job too.
1 lap to go. Partouche in that 600. Got a lot of work to do yet. There's still a long way to go around this course. 3/4 of a lap, and Leamington and Van Rooyen pouring the coals to him.
So high-revving 4-cylinder Honda 600cc's out in front, being chased by a big booming V-twin. A brilliant Duono in the hands of Van Rooyen.
Van Rooyen's coming well. He's really putting the pressure on now.
And chasing them from behind is Richard Leamington on number 3. A Ducati 99. It's 3 totally different types of bike. 3 different manufacturers, 2 of them Italian, being led by this Japanese Honda. Partouche under the biggest threat that he's had so far this weekend.
Well, you just saw Van Rooyen closing in, made a lot of ground coming off the corner. Here's where this big bike will start to get a bit of a run on him. We're going to come up to the braking section. Watch for the 77. Here comes Van Rooyen. Yes!
And Partouche says, you want to go that deep, boy, you'd better be brave and keep it on line. And when he ran wide, Partouche came back at him, down the inside, and heads him to the checkered flag. Well thought by Rico Partouche. Victory again on bike number 18, the CBR 600 ahead of Van Rooyen. On 77, Richard Leamington completes the podium on number 3.
Here's a look at it again. Well, he was never going to die wondering, wasn't he? Up the inside, had a good look. And Partouche kept his head in a crisis. I've got a more nimble bike. I've got the better line coming out. Wake up, you're dreaming.
So behind the podium is Steve Manning, 4th Darren Hall, 5th Dorothy Tuccina, in 6th place Andrew Wyman, and then Nicholas Leamington in 8th place, giving a championship of Steve Manning his point score reduced. James Van Rooyen in 2nd place, Richard Leamington, Darren Hall, Rico Partouche moving up to 5th, and then Richard Moore 6th.
Time to take